What most men don't realize is that the moment you start pulling your energy back, everything shifts. The same woman who seemed distant, unsure, or even uninterested suddenly starts leaning in. She texts more, she pays attention, she begins to chase. And if you don't understand why this happens, you'll either misread it or ruin it completely. Welcome to the channel. Today we're breaking down a dynamic a lot of men experience but rarely understand. When she feels you're losing interest, her behavior changes. Not randomly, not emotionally, but predictably. I've seen this pattern play out over and over again with clients, couples, and real-life situations. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a series of clips that show this shift in real time. We'll pause, unpack what's actually going on beneath the surface, and I'll explain why her attraction increases the moment she senses you're no longer fully invested. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding emotional dynamics so you stop reacting blindly and start seeing clearly. Because once you understand this pattern, you'll never look at her behavior the same way again. 1. When your attention drops, her curiosity rises. Most men think attraction grows when they give more. More attention, more time, more reassurance. But what they don't see is how quickly that can remove the very tension that keeps her emotionally engaged. When your attention is constant, predictable, and always available, there's nothing for her to wonder about. And once curiosity disappears, so does a big part of her attraction. Now here's where things get interesting. The moment you start pulling back, not in a dramatic way, not to play games, but simply by becoming less available, her mind starts to fill in the gaps. She begins to notice the difference. Why is he not texting the same way? Why does he seem a little more distant? That small shift creates just enough uncertainty to trigger her curiosity again. And curiosity is powerful. It pulls her back in emotionally. She starts paying closer attention to you, analyzing your behavior, trying to understand what changed. This is where the dynamic flips. Instead of you constantly trying to hold her attention, she begins trying to regain yours. I've seen this happen so many times. A man who was doing everything right suddenly stops overextending himself, and almost instantly, the woman becomes more responsive, more interested, more present. Not because he became someone new, but because he removed the predictability. When your attention drops, her curiosity rises. And once her curiosity is activated, the chase doesn't feel forced anymore. It feels natural. 2. She notices the shift before you say a word. One mistake men make is thinking a woman needs you to explain everything for her to understand what's going on. She doesn't. Women are highly tuned to emotional shifts, especially when it comes to attention and energy. You might think you're being subtle, but the moment your behavior changes, even slightly, she feels it. It's not just about texting less or calling less. It's in how you respond, how quickly you reply, the tone you use, even your presence when you're around her. If you used to be fully engaged and suddenly you're a little more reserved, a little less reactive, she picks up on that immediately. You don't have to announce anything. The change speaks for itself. And here's where it becomes important for you to understand this. She doesn't just notice it, she interprets it. In her mind, a shift in your attention often signals a shift in your interest. That's when questions begin to form. Is he losing interest? Did I do something wrong? Is there someone else? Whether those thoughts are accurate or not doesn't matter. What matters is that they create emotional movement. This is why your behavior carries more weight than your words. You can say all the right things, but if your energy doesn't match, she will trust what she feels over what you say every single time. So instead of over-explaining yourself or trying to control how she sees you, understand that your consistency, or lack of it, is always communicating something. When that consistency shifts, she notices quickly, and once she notices, her behavior will start to adjust in response. 3. Pulling back creates emotional tension. Most men hear "pull back" and immediately think it's about disappearing or acting cold. That's not what creates attraction. What actually changes the dynamic is emotional tension. The space between what she expects from you and what you suddenly stop giving. When you've been consistent with your attention, She gets used to a certain rhythm. She knows how you respond, when you respond, and how available you are. That comfort feels good, but it also becomes predictable, and predictability over time lowers emotional intensity. The moment you step back, even slightly, you disrupt that rhythm. Now there's a gap. She doesn't feel the same level of certainty anymore. And that gap is where tension is created. Tension isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's what keeps attraction alive. It makes her think about you more, replay conversations, question what changed. It pulls her into the situation emotionally because now there's something unresolved. But here's where most men go wrong. They either overdo it or panic. They pull back too hard, become distant to the point of disconnection, or they get uncomfortable with the tension and rush to fix it by over-explaining or over-pursuing again. Both kill the effect. The goal isn't to withdraw completely, it's to allow just enough space for her to feel the difference. That slight uncertainty is what keeps her engaged. When emotional tension is present, she leans in to close the gap, and that's when you'll start to see a shift. Not because you forced it, but because the dynamic naturally pulled her back toward you. 4. She starts investing to regain control. Once that emotional tension is in place, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. She starts to invest more. Not because you asked for it, not because you demanded it, but because she feels the balance has shifted and she wants to restore what she thinks she's losing. At the beginning, she may have been in a more passive position, simply responding to your energy. But now, as your attention becomes less predictable, she begins to take initiative. She texts first more often. She checks in. She tries to create conversations that didn't need to exist before. On the surface, it looks like sudden interest. But underneath, it's about emotional recalibration. What's really happening is this. She is trying to regain a sense of control in the connection. When someone feels they're no longer the center of your attention, they often increase their effort to see if they still hold that position. It's not always conscious, it's instinctive. This is where many men misread the situation. They assume, she's finally showing interest, I should double my effort. And that's where they lose balance again. Because the moment you overreact to her investment, you reset the dynamic back to where it started. The key here is awareness. When she starts investing more, it's not a signal to chase harder. It's a signal that the dynamic has shifted in your favor. You simply stay steady. You observe. You don't rush to fill every gap she creates. When you remain grounded while she increases her effort, something interesting happens. She begins to associate you with emotional stability and value, and that's when her investment becomes deeper, not temporary. 5. The chase begins when you stop chasing. Think about a relationship you've probably seen before, or maybe even experienced indirectly. A man starts off very available. He's always checking in, always initiating, always trying to make things smooth and comfortable. At first, she responds. She enjoys the attention. But over time, something shifts. She starts to feel like she doesn't need to reach out as much because he always will. The balance quietly tilts. Now picture what happens when that same man changes his behavior. Not in anger, not in frustration, but simply by becoming more focused on his own life. He's still present, but not constantly available. He still communicates, but not from a place of over-availability. Suddenly, the woman who was once relaxed in the dynamic starts to adjust. She begins to initiate conversations more often. She checks in without being prompted. She tries to reconnect in small ways, sending messages, asking questions, finding reasons to engage. From the outside, it looks like she's becoming more interested. But what's really happening is she's responding to the shift in effort. This is where the chase quietly begins. Not because he asked for it, and not because she decided to play a game, but because the emotional balance changed. When she senses she's no longer being pursued in the same way, she starts to step forward to re-establish that connection. But here's the key lesson most men miss in real relationships. The moment you start chasing again to match her energy, the dynamic resets. The chase only continues when you stay grounded and don't overcorrect. What keeps her engaged is not you running after her. It's you being steady while she adjusts her position toward you. Once you understand this dynamic, You stop reacting emotionally to every shift in her behavior. You realize that attraction is not static. It moves based on energy, attention, and emotional balance. When she feels you pulling back, her response is often to lean in, not because of manipulation, but because of natural psychological tension. The mistake most men make is over-pursuing the moment she shows interest again, which resets everything. The real advantage is staying grounded, observant, and consistent. Because in the end, the chase doesn't come from forcing it. It comes from understanding when to do less and letting her step forward.